Deadpool and Wolverine is a 2024 superhero blockbuster from Marvel Studios. It's their first project since November's The Marvels, which was an absolute failure. Just a really boring and generic movie that had a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes and kind of proved that Marvel was at its peak low. Now, Deadpool, the Merc with a Mouth, is back in theaters and finally in the MCU after a years-long rights battle between Disney after they bought Fox, which of course is referenced in the movie, and now Deadpool's out to set a name for himself and fix the MCU altogether. Deadpool and Wolverine is overall a fun movie, and it does a lot of things differently that hasn't been done in the MCU before. So far, they've only said the F word once in the entire 35-movie collection, and now with Deadpool 3 entering the MCU's catalog, it's been said 119 times. There's no holding back in this movie. There's lots of violence, there's heads being sliced off, there's epic battles, there's drinking, smoking, references to cocaine. The movie goes off the walls with its meta references that only a project like She-Hulk has done before in the MCU. It's an entertaining movie. It's a successful movie. It's the highest grossing R-rated film of all time already. Why? Because it drums up hype, and because it brought a long-awaited change to what audiences have expected from Marvel movies. Sure, we've gotten solo projects like The Batman, which was a 3-hour detective story, pretty rare in modern movies, but that movie was PG-13. We had movies like Logan and Joker, both R-rated dark character pieces set in a story based on a comics property like DC or Marvel, but it wasn't a superhero action film. It was more of a standalone character piece, quite different from what audiences have expected. Deadpool and Wolverine is the first superhero movie in a long time to feel like a blockbuster popcorn movie, but it's rated R. That's what's drawing in audiences. Oppenheimer may have just under $1 million last year, and it was rated R. People wanted to see what they could expect from Christopher Nolan's first R-rated movie in 20 years. And the question people probably should be asking is, well, is Deadpool and Wolverine a good movie? My answer to that is yes, but actually no. I think it's actually a fairly okay movie, but not the kind of movie that will stand the test of time. To be fair, in some capacity, it will be a pretty big movie through history because of how it introduces Deadpool and Wolverine into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But if we're talking in terms of structure or story, the movie really is just an average Marvel film. It's like a way more entertaining Doctor Strange into the Multiverse of Madness, in that it feels small in a capacity where a movie of this budget should feel massive. It feels like we only see a small flicker of potential cameos when there's a whole arsenal at Marvel's disposal. The movie has a checklist of traditional action sequences, which, to be fair, are pretty cool. The action in this is really good. The color grading is honestly great, and there's a lot always happening on camera, so the CG backgrounds don't feel so bland. Like, if you look at the Marvels, in the opening shot, there's like 3 people in one scene, and it's so clearly on a CG background with just nothing happening. It's just so ugly to look at. However, with Deadpool and Wolverine, things were clearly shot indoors and on sound stages, but so much detail is put into every shot, so it honestly does feel like there's a lot of passion put into this movie, and the world building itself is just really good, and you can really feel like this world is fleshed out. And I know these movies are often forced to shoot on these hidden sound stages to hide Chris Evans' beautiful face, keep it hidden away so we wouldn't get this cameo spoiled for us, but overall, I just feel like Deadpool and Wolverine could have been kind of a better movie. It's kind of like Star Trek Generations, a movie from 1990 that introduced both William Shatner's Captain Kirk and Patrick Stewart's Jean-Luc Picard in the same movie. And they also both deal with a villain who's trying to use mind control. But honestly, Deadpool and Wolverine is better than Star Trek Generations, but with both movies, there's just something lacking. I think it's just as the general plot of the multiverse has become kind of malleable and kind of boring. It's hard to see this multiverse as being a concrete threat, where if something happens in this movie, all's doomed. I always appreciated movies like The Avengers, which came out in 2012, which was the epitome of superhero team-up blockbusters. This movie made its threat feel like a threat. The Avengers 2012 made its threat feel real. There were alien soldiers dropping down from ships, attacking people in the city. You had the Avengers teaming up to stop the aliens in different parts of the city. There was a plan, there was a structure. There was this feeling of threat, of doom. It just overall felt now like there's no threat in Deadpool and Wolverine. And I feel in a movie like this, where so much effort goes into explaining a lot of timelines and technical backstory and exposition, that just isn't interesting. I would like them to have given the villain a little more backstory, or made her feel like someone who actually would pose a threat. Deadpool himself says this is a lot of exposition for a first act, and I really do think the first act is kind of bogged down by all the explaining and catching up. If more effort went to shaping the villain and giving her an adequate backstory, I think the threat would have felt less surface level. It really does feel like something out of a 20-minute X-Men cartoon, because Cassandra Nova, our villain, is introduced so late in the movie, and to be fair, I get it. The producers of this movie aren't interested in telling a recycled superhero story we've already seen 1,000 times. They want to make this a Deadpool movie, and they know they can introduce the Marvel logo in the beginning with Deadpool speaking over it, which is a clever idea. After all, this is Deadpool's introduction to the MCU. Why not go all out? I'm just saying, if you want to make a compelling villain, and therefore a compelling threat, you need to introduce this villain early on, or at least make her have some sort of impact in the story. Don't introduce her about an hour into the movie and use her as a plot device so our heroes can run off and meet Gambit, Elektra, and Blade, and yeah, it's fun. Deadpool is fun with a good villain, and even better when he has someone to rip off of. Deadpool is fun with a good villain, and even better when he has someone to riff with. Which is why Deadpool 1 is honestly the worst of the franchise, because Deadpool has very few people to riff with. And to be honest, the villain, Ajax, in that movie was pretty bad. And Deadpool movies do have a villain problem, which does continue here. Deadpool and Wolverine have no prior motive to dislike this villain. They don't even know who she is when she's introduced on screen. She doesn't pose a threat to them until she simply says she can wipe out their timeline, which is an issue with this Deadpool movie. The threat of wiping out a timeline is a good idea in concept. It also uses the TVA from Loki to bridge the two worlds together, which is a strong concept in theory. And I like that they use the TVA to link the Marvel Cinematic Universe to the Deadpool universe. It's a good idea, but it just ends up leading to a lot of explaining. And there never really is a time where I felt that Mr. Paradox, played by Matthew McFadden, or Cassandra Nova, played by Emma Corrin, posed any real threat. Yes, they both threatened to wipe out Wade's timeline, but that's all just talk. It's one of those show us, don't tell us moments, where I never really feel like anyone's actually in danger. It's just a spoken threat. Where is Cassandra in the end? She doesn't come up to destroy the city or start killing some innocent people because she didn't get her way. She just waits for the extras to clear out, as Deadpool says himself, and then just allows them to get attacked by the Deadpool Corps, which does make for a fun scene. I did enjoy the battle and how Madonna's Like a Prayer was choreographed and how they used the one shot for the bus sequence. It's all pretty good, and the color grading is great, and the blood looks great. It's good stuff, but underneath the movie, it's just a generic checklist marking Marvel plotline they've always used before. It's nothing really new and nothing really groundbreaking. What I'm trying to say is we've seen movies like this before from Marvel. It has this similar malleable multiverse structure like No Way Home, but it is better, mostly because it can get away with a lot more stuff, and just visually and action-wise, this is put together way better than No Way Home. Just technically, it just looks way better. I do like Deadpool and Wolverine for what it is. It gives the fans what they want, even if the story is telling nothing that new. It's a successful venture because it has Wolverine, and it also has irony. Wolverine and Deadpool shouldn't be friends, but they are, and watching them team up is entertaining to watch. It has a great score. It uses its cameos in a way to bring back characters from the past to tell a new story, and even injects some emotion, such as including Laura from Fox's universe in the TVA's garbage heap. Including her into a group including Gambit, Elektra, and Blade is a great idea because it adds some much-needed depth to fuel Wolverine's character. It's a little less impactful on on Deadpool's side, but what we get is a fun time at the movies. I was expecting Deadpool 3 to be a bit stronger, but it has the foundation of a solid superhero movie. It's lacking a bit in character, but then again, it's building off of 20 years of pre-existing and established character, so I think we can give it a little excuse. I'm curious, though, what everyone else thought of Deadpool 3, and even if they think that multiverse narrative is getting a bit exhausting. I think it's a great way to bring back characters who are gone, but as far as telling a story, I would like movies to just get back to the simpler narrative, like in The Avengers. There was a simple science fiction explanation that kind of tied everything together, with the movie ending in a massive alien invasion. And have understandably gotten more complicated with more mythology introduced to the MCU. I think these movies just need to simply go back to the way things were. And with individual style too. I think Deadpool and Wolverine could be a little more inventive. There are some really cool shots, like I mentioned, the bus sequence, the fight sequences, the style of the TVA, which is borrowed from Loki. But I do think if you look at the Avengers, which had a lot of cool heroic shots, like the comic book shots, that famous shot of the camera rotating around the Avengers, that is awesome, and I wish this movie had more of that. It does have some cool heroic shots, but I feel like, they just stick with this regular camera moving to elicit tension in certain scenes, kind of like how they do in The Office. The Avengers got away with that because it was this first team-up movie. There hadn't been a movie like that, so it kind of combined this feeling of heroic comic book shots with this natural tension as you'd get in thriller films or you'd get in the Bourne films. I just feel like these movies have gotten too used to that, And I just wish Deadpool and Wolverine was more inventive visually, because it really was at the beginning, where we're having this bye 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 dance sequence with Deadpool killing TVA members set to music, and it's really cool. I just wish the movie had more inventive stuff like that, if that makes sense. It just needs more. There is some cool stuff where they speak to the camera and where they break the fourth wall. I just wanted more. It feels like it's stuck being a Marvel movie where it has to adhere to the same thing we've seen a million times before. It would have been cooler if Deadpool just stuck to its guns and gave us a full-on visual and audio treat. I feel like the movie we got, despite breaking some ground, is still pretty safe, and it would be cool to see how they're going to include Deadpool into the future of Marvel while still keeping it PG-13. So let me know what you guys think. If you enjoyed Deadpool and Wolverine, let me know what you guys think. Thanks so much for watching.